Every human being alive right now is diluting themselves, and they don't even know it. You have watched people scatter their energy across rooms they were never meant to enter, conversations that were never meant to include them, spaces that were never designed to hold their weight. And somehow, in all of that presence, in all of that constant showing up, they have become less. Not more, less. There is a brutal psychological paradox living at the center of modern human behavior, and almost no one has the courage to name it plainly. The more available you make yourself, the less valuable you become, not in the eyes of the world, but in the architecture of your own mind. You stop being a force. You become furniture. And the darkest part of this truth is that you did it willingly, smiling, believing that your presence was a gift, when the whole time it was a slow erosion of the very power you were trying to share. Strategic absence is not cruelty. It is the highest form of self-respect a human being can practice. It is the quiet, iron discipline of understanding that your energy is a finite and sacred resource, and that the moment you pour it into every vessel that asks, you are not being generous, you are being consumed. Most people have been conditioned to believe that showing up is a virtue in itself. They were taught that loyalty means availability, that love means accessibility, that friendship means never making another person wait. And so they answer every call, they attend every gathering, they flood every silence with their presence, terrified of what others might think if they were simply absent. But here is what no one told them in all those years of conditioning. The person who is always there is taken for granted before they even sit down. There is an invisible but merciless law operating inside every human relationship, professional structure, and social dynamic. It is not a law written in any book. It is written in the oldest part of the human brain, in the primal circuitry that still evaluates threat and value and scarcity before the conscious mind has even caught up. That law is this: what is rare is respected, and what is constant is ignored. You see it in the way a room shifts when someone who rarely speaks finally opens their mouth. Every head turns, every breath quiets, because the mind, without being asked, has already calculated that this person's words carry weight precisely because they are not offered cheaply. Compare that to the person who fills every silence, who speaks in every meeting, who is present in every group chat, every dinner, every conversation. Their words become ambient noise. Not because they are less intelligent or less worthy, but because the brain of every person around them has learned that this resource is unlimited. And unlimited resources, by evolutionary design, are assigned zero urgency. This is not a metaphor. This is the neurological mechanism behind human valuation, and it operates without permission and without mercy. The tragedy is that the people who give the most of themselves are often the ones who receive the least reverence. Not because the world is unjust, though sometimes it is, but because they have violated a deep psychological contract. The contract that says presence must be earned. Now consider what happens when a person begins to withdraw, deliberately, strategically, without explanation. Not out of anger, not as a punishment, but as a silent, sovereign decision to reclaim the weight of their own existence. The first thing people notice is discomfort, because absence, real absence, forces the people around you to confront how much they had been consuming you without acknowledging the consumption. It is like turning off a light that has been running for years. Suddenly, the darkness is not just dark, it is loud. It asks questions, and those questions, the absence you force other people to sit with, are far more powerful than any argument you could have made, any boundary you could have verbalized, any confrontation you could have staged.
Your disappearance becomes a mirror, and some people will not like what they see in it. They will reach out, Not always because they miss you in the emotional sense. Sometimes they reach out because your absence has disturbed the architecture they built around your availability. They built routines on top of your presence. They built assumptions. They built a version of the relationship where you were always the one who showed up, who adjusted, who filled the gaps. And now the gaps are showing, and the structure doesn't hold without you in it. That realization, that is the moment your value becomes visible. Not announced, not argued for, simply revealed, the way a bone reveals itself only after the flesh has been pulled back. There is a reason why every serious study of power, whether in psychology and sociology, in the documented behavior of leaders across centuries, consistently identifies withdrawal as one of the most sophisticated and underestimated tools a human being can possess. It is not withdrawal out of weakness. It is not the sulking retreat of someone who has been wounded and doesn't know how to articulate it. It is the cold, calculated, emotionally disciplined act of someone who understands that scarcity creates gravity. Think about the people in your own life who have commanded the most reverence from you. Not the loudest ones, not the most constantly present ones, the ones who showed up selectively, the ones whose attention felt like something you had to earn rather than something they handed out freely. You probably didn't even know why you respected them more. You couldn't articulate it in the moment, but it was there. That instinctive deference, that extra care you took with your words around them, that subtle shift in posture when they were in the room. They had mastered, whether consciously or not, the art of making their presence mean something by making their absence real. This is not manipulation in the vulgar sense of the word. Manipulation implies deception. What we are describing is something far more ancient and far more honest. It is the management of perception through the discipline of restraint. And the most powerful aspect of it is that it requires nothing external. No status, no resources, no platform, only the iron will to stop flooding the world with yourself before the world has decided it is thirsty. But here is where the philosophy cuts deepest, because strategic absence is not only about how others perceive you, it is about who you are when you are alone. The person who is always somewhere, always engaged, always reacting, always performing for some audience, real or imagined, that person never develops an interior life of any real density. They are always exporting themselves, and you cannot export what you have never had the silence to build. The great minds across history, the thinkers, the strategists, the artists who produced work that still reverberates centuries after their deaths, were not the most socially available people of their time. Marcus Aurelius wrote his deepest thoughts in private journals, never intended for anyone else's eyes. Nikola Tesla would disappear for weeks. Kafka asked for his manuscripts to be burned. So private was his interior world that even the idea of it being consumed by others felt like a violation. These were not accidents of personality. These were people who understood viscerally that the self is not a renewable resource in the way we like to pretend. Every hour you spend performing your existence for others is an hour you do not spend building the architecture of your mind. And a mind with no interior architecture is just a mirror, reflecting whatever room it happens to be standing in, with no identity of its own, no gravity, no original force. This is what constant availability truly costs you. Not just the perception of others, your own depth, your own originality, the very texture of who you are as a human being when no one is watching and nothing is being performed. So the question is not whether you should practice strategic absence. The question is whether you have the psychological discipline to tolerate the discomfort it will create, because it will create discomfort. People will interpret your withdrawal as rejection. Some will call it arrogance. Others will fill the silence you leave with narratives that serve their own anxiety. And for a person who has built their identity around being needed, around being the one who shows up, around the warm validation of constant inclusion, that silence will feel at first like a kind of death. But on the other side of that death is something that most people never get to experience: the weight of your own presence returned to you. The strange, quiet power of a self that no longer needs to be everywhere to feel like it exists. the realization that you were never diminished by the times you were absent. You were only diminished by the times you were present without intention, without purpose, without the sovereignty of your own choosing. You do not owe the world your constant presence. You owe yourself the discipline to protect what is rare about you before the world's appetite consumes it entirely. And the moment you understand that silence is not emptiness, but a form of power with no apology attached to it, everything changes.